Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're going to break down the powerful and surprisingly persistent science behind first impressions. The legendary Coco Chanel, she wasn't just talking about fashion here. She absolutely nailed a deep social truth that I think we all kind of get in our gut. And look, this isn't just some old saying. We're talking decades of psychological research here, going all the way back to Solomon Asch in 1946. And what did they find? They proved that these initial judgments are, well, they're incredibly sticky. They're really, really hard to change once they're locked in. All right, so let's get right into it. Section 1, the power of a first glance. So get this, that first judgment, it happens almost instantly. It's not like you're sitting there consciously thinking about it. Your brain just, boom, creates this mental framework, this little story about a person. And from that point on, that story acts like a filter for everything else you learn about them. So why are our brains even wired this way? I mean, it seems kind of unfair, right? Let's dig into the psychology behind these snap judgments. And this is a really important question because if you understand why it happens, you can start to manage how it happens. And the answer, well, it's buried deep in our psychology. Okay, so what's really going on in our heads? Well, it boils down to this really powerful mix of old school survival instincts and some modern mental shortcuts. First off, your brain's number one job is to keep you safe, right? So it's constantly asking friend or foe, safe or unsafe. But then our ego gets in the way. Admitting our first gut feeling was wrong, it feels like a personal failure. So what do? We start unconsciously looking for any little piece of evidence that proves we were right all along. Yeah, there's actually a name for this. Psychologists call it the setting effect. And here's a good way to think about it. Imagine your brain finds a path to understand someone. It's going to stick to that path because it's easy, it's efficient. Trying to carve a new path, that takes a ton of mental energy. It's like trying to swim upstream. It's just way easier to go with the flow you've already found. Okay, so knowing all of that, how do we actually take back some control? Well, that brings us to the art of impression management. Now, right away, let's be clear, this is not about being fake or putting on some act. It's about being intentional. It's about understanding that, hey, people are going to form an impression of you no matter what. And you actually have some power to influence what that impression is. And most of these strategies really fall into two big buckets. You've got self-enhancement, that's all the stuff focused on you, dressing sharp, having confident body language. And then there's other enhancement. And this is all about making the other person feel good. And this is where it gets really, really interesting when you look at the data. What actually works best? Research shows time and time again that other enhancement, making the other person feel good, feel heard, feel important, is by far the most effective tactic. It's more powerful than promoting yourself. And get this, it's even better than doing little favors for someone. It's all about them. But let's be real, we're all human. We mess up. Sometimes you make a terrible first impression. So what happens then? How do you recover? So, is it a lost cause? The short answer is no, definitely not. But remember that setting effect we talked about? You are now officially swimming against the current. It's going to take a clear plan and, more than anything, a lot of consistent effort. Okay, so here's a simple but really powerful four-step plan to turn things around. First, just apologize. A sincere, direct apology. No excuses. Don't blame the traffic. Don't blame a bad day. Step 3, actively try to fix whatever you did wrong. And finally, and this is the big one, be consistent. One good interaction isn't going to erase a bad first impression. Because at the end of the day, it's consistency that rebuilds that trust. Your repeated positive actions, those are the new data points that their brain needs to slowly but surely overwrite that initial negative file it created on you. All right, for our last section, let's zoom out a bit because all of this gets way more complicated when you throw culture into the mix. Yeah, a simple gesture, something you do without even a second thought, can either build a connection or, as you're about to see, completely burn the bridge to the ground. And it all depends on where you are in the world. Let's start with something super basic, the head nod. For most of us, up and down means yes. Simple, right? Well, not in Bulgaria. There, nodding your head up and down means no. I mean, just imagine how confusing that conversation would be. Or how about this one? The okay gesture we use all the time in the US to say everything's great. You do that in places like Greece or Turkey, and it's a deeply offensive insult, a total disaster of a first impression. And you wouldn't even know why. And it can be really subtle too, like how you point to yourself. In most Western cultures, if someone asks who, me, you point to your chest. But in China, you'd point to your nose. It's a tiny detail, but it just shows you how deep these cultural differences can go. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's pretty clear, right? In the world we live in today, cultural awareness isn't just a nice to have. It is a critical, non-negotiable part of managing your impression and avoiding some really awkward or even disastrous misunderstandings. And all of this leaves us with one last big question to think about. Knowing how biased our own brains are, knowing how easily we can be influenced, and how easily we can just be flat out wrong, can you ever really truly trust your first impression of someone else?